They walked into the new school like any other pair of quiet kids, backpacks hanging loosely, eyes calm but watchful. Nobody knew who they really were. To most, they were just the new twins, two black siblings with polite smiles and matching uniforms that looked a little too neat for a place that fed on chaos. But behind those gentle eyes hid a strength no one could see, a strength built through years of discipline, patience, and respect. The morning bell hadn't even finished ringing when whispers started. A few older boys leaned against the lockers, smirking. Words were thrown softly, the kind that cut quietly, mocking their hair, their skin, the way they carried themselves. The twins didn't respond. They simply exchanged a look, a silent reminder of everything their parents had taught them: stay calm. Never let anger lead. At lunch, the taunts grew louder. One boy nudged another and laughed, blocking their way in the cafeteria line. A carton of milk spilled, laughter followed. Everyone waited for a reaction. But the twins just cleaned the mess, nodded politely, and walked away. That silence confused the bullies more than any words could. Later that day, in gym class, the truth began to stir. Coach asked for volunteers for the upcoming self-defense demonstration. The twins hesitated, but when no one else stepped forward, they did. The room went quiet. For the first time, everyone noticed how controlled their movements were: steady breathing, balanced posture, eyes that never wavered. When the coach called the first move, their bodies moved like flowing water, precise, disciplined, powerful yet graceful. It wasn't aggression, it was art. The bullies who had mocked them earlier stood frozen, realizing these weren't ordinary kids. Every motion carried respect, not revenge. As the class ended, one student whispered, "They're black belts." Another nodded in disbelief. The rumor spread faster than the laughter had hours before. But the twins didn't gloat. They bowed to the coach, thanked him, and walked out quietly, just as they had walked in. That night, sitting by their window, they watched the city lights flicker. "People see our color before they see our character," one twin said softly. The other smiled. "Then we'll just let our actions speak." And as the stars shimmered above, the world outside remained unaware of the story that was just beginning, a story not about fighting hate with fists, but with grace, strength, and dignity. The next morning felt different. The hallways weren't filled with laughter this time, only curious stares. Whispers followed the twins wherever they went. Some were full of respect, others disbelief. The bullies, once so loud, now watched from a distance, unsure how to act. It's strange how quickly fear replaces arrogance when truth surfaces. Maya and Malik, the twins, didn't walk with pride or ego. Their steps remained calm, their smiles gentle. They had been trained not to seek revenge but to earn respect through character. At home, their father, a retired martial arts instructor, always said, "Real strength isn't what you show in a fight, it's what you control in peace." And that lesson echoed in their hearts as they faced the days ahead. During class, a teacher asked the students to form groups for a history project. No one volunteered to join the twins. The silence felt heavy, awkward. But then, something unexpected happened. A quiet girl named Emma raised her hand. "I'll work with them," she said softly. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment, it broke a silent wall. As they worked together, Emma learned things the others didn't see. She saw how kind Malik was when explaining ideas, how patient Maya was when helping her write. They laughed quietly, shared stories, and for the first time, someone saw them not as different, but as human. That small friendship began to shift the energy around them. Meanwhile, the bullies struggled with their own pride. They couldn't stand being ignored. One of them, Jake, felt especially challenged. His friends urged him to move on, but his ego wouldn't allow it. He watched the twins during gym, during lunch, during every quiet moment, and what he saw wasn't weakness, but control. It frustrated him even more. After school, as the sky turned orange with sunset, the twins found a small note in their locker. It said only 2 words, "Stay away." There was no name, no threat beyond the message, but they understood. Instead of anger, they felt a strange sadness. Why did people fear peace so much? That night, as the wind whispered through their open window, Maya looked at her brother. "We can't keep running from ignorance," she said. Malik nodded. "No. But we can face it with who we are." Outside, the stars seemed to listen. The calm before the storm had arrived, but unlike before, the twins weren't afraid. They had learned something powerful. Sometimes, silence isn't surrender, it's preparation. The next few days unfolded like quiet ripples after a storm. The school had changed, not in noise, but in energy. Whispers turned into glances, and glances turned into thoughts. People began wondering who the twins really were, what kind of strength allowed them to walk through cruelty without breaking. Emma stayed close to them, noticing the subtle ways they lifted others. When a younger student dropped his books, Maya bent down first, smiling gently as she helped him. When a shy boy struggled with his presentation, Malik offered to stand beside him for courage. These small acts didn't make headlines, but they changed hearts, one moment at a time. But not everyone was ready for change. Jake still watched from afar, his pride wrestling with guilt. He couldn't understand how the same kids he mocked could respond with kindness. His friends had started pulling away, ashamed of their behavior, but Jake's heart was heavier. Sometimes, the hardest fight isn't against others, it's against yourself. One afternoon, the twins found themselves alone in the school courtyard. The air was calm, filled with the golden light of late autumn. Maya sat sketching in her notebook while Malik stretched quietly beside her. That's when Jake appeared. His voice was rough, unsure. "Why didn't you fight back that day?" he asked. Malik looked up, his tone steady but soft. "Because fighting doesn't change minds. It only proves what people already believe." Maya added, "We'd rather show strength by staying calm." Jake hesitated, his expression flickering between anger and shame. "You think that makes you better," he muttered. Maya shook her head. "No. It makes us responsible." The silence that followed was heavy, yet not hostile. For the first time, Jake didn't have a comeback. He turned and walked away slowly, carrying something far heavier than guilt, realization. Later that evening, Emma posted a photo of the twins practicing at the local park. She captioned it simply, "Strength isn't about fighting. It's about peace." The post spread through the school community overnight. Comments poured in, some apologetic, some inspired. The next morning, the atmosphere was different again. Students who once ignored the twins now smiled. A few even said hello. The bullies kept their distance, but their silence was no longer cruel, it was thoughtful. As the twins walked through the hallway, Maya whispered, "People change slowly." Malik smiled. "That's still change." They didn't know it yet, but this quiet shift was only the beginning of something bigger, a ripple that would soon reach beyond the school walls. By the end of the week, the air at school felt lighter, as if unseen walls were finally beginning to crack. For the first time, Maya and Malik could walk through the halls without the sting of whispered cruelty following behind them. There were still stares, yes, but they carried curiosity now, not mockery. Sometimes, change doesn't arrive with noise. It slips in quietly, through moments of truth. In history class, the teacher announced a special assembly, a Unity Day, meant to celebrate diversity and kindness. Students were encouraged to share something about their background, their talents, or their experiences. When the teacher mentioned that the twins had agreed to give a small martial arts demonstration, the class fell silent, part awe, part anticipation. The next day, the gym was filled with students, teachers, and parents. The twins stood on the center mat, calm and composed, dressed in their simple white uniforms. There were no fancy moves, no aggressive energy. Just discipline, flow, and grace. As soft music played, they demonstrated balance and harmony, how one move connected to another, like trust connecting people. When it ended, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then, applause began, slowly at first, then rising like a wave. Even Jake clapped, his head bowed slightly. It wasn't about being impressed. It was about being moved. Afterward, the teacher asked Maya what the performance meant to her. She replied gently, "It's about control. Not over others, but over ourselves. When you know who you are, no one's hate can change you." The audience listened, many wiping their eyes without realizing it. Her words didn't sound rehearsed, they sounded lived. That afternoon, Jake waited outside the school gates. When the twins walked out, he stepped forward. His voice trembled slightly. "I was wrong," he said, barely meeting their eyes. "I judged you without knowing you. I'm sorry." Malik nodded, extending his hand with a quiet smile. Apology accepted. No speech, no revenge, just understanding. And that simplicity hit deeper than any confrontation ever could. As Jake walked away, the twins stood in silence, watching him disappear down the road. Maya whispered, "You think he'll change?" Malik smiled. He already started. That night, as rain fell softly against their window, the twins sat together, reflecting. They weren't proud of being admired, they were proud of staying true. Their journey wasn't about proving strength, but about teaching peace. The world outside still carried its shadows, but in their hearts, something bright had begun to glow: hope. The week after Unity Day felt like a sunrise after a long storm. Smiles came easier now. Even the teachers seemed lighter, their voices warmer. The twins' quiet strength had somehow softened the sharp edges of the school. Still, Maya and Malik knew that change takes patience. It needs to be watered with kindness, again and again. One morning, they arrived early and found the gym empty, sunlight spilling across the floor like gold. They began to practice silently, their movements slow and graceful. Every motion was a memory, years of training with their father, long nights of discipline, and lessons wrapped in patience. They didn't practice for show, they practiced to stay centered, to keep peace alive within themselves. Unbeknownst to them, a few students stood by the doorway watching. Among them was Emma, who smiled proudly, and Jake, who looked unsure but deeply moved. For the first time, he saw their practice not as power, but as peace. It was like watching calmness take form. Later that day, the principal made an announcement. The school had been chosen to represent the district in a community event promoting inclusion and respect. She wanted Maya, Malik, and a few others, including Jake, to represent the school. The news surprised everyone. Even Jake's friends looked at him in disbelief. But Jake didn't argue. He simply nodded. Over the next week, they worked together, designing banners, writing short speeches, and planning how to present their message. It wasn't easy. Old habits surfaced, awkward silences returned, but something different was in the air now: effort. Jake stumbled through his words at first, embarrassed, but Malik encouraged him. "You don't have to be perfect," he said. "You just have to be honest." During one rehearsal, Emma noticed how everyone was finally working side by side. No one cared about color, background, or past mistakes. It wasn't magic, it was growth. The kind that comes from listening, not shouting. On the day of the event, the group stood before a small crowd at the local park. The twins demonstrated their peaceful art again, while Jake spoke about second chances and what he'd learned about humility. His voice trembled, but his words carried truth. When he finished, Maya placed a hand on his shoulder and smiled, a silent acknowledgement of redemption. As the crowd applauded, Malik looked around at the faces, smiling, hopeful, connected. For the first time, he realized that maybe peace could spread like martial arts itself, through patience, through teaching, through heart. That evening, as they walked home under the fading sky, Maya whispered, "We didn't just change them, did we?" Malik smiled softly. "No, they changed us too." The days following the community event felt like a quiet victory, not one of trophies or headlines, but of hearts. The school that once whispered behind the twins' backs now spoke to them with warmth. Doors that had been closed by prejudice were beginning to open, and within those openings, kindness began to grow. Still, Maya and Malik never let pride take root. Their father's words stayed close: when respect comes, wear it with humility. The moment you think you've won, you stop growing. So each morning, they trained as usual, steady, silent, focused. Peace, after all, needed maintenance like any skill. One afternoon, while walking home, they noticed Jake sitting alone on the curb outside the park. His backpack was open, papers scattered in the wind. When Maya bent down to help, she noticed he wasn't angry, just quiet, lost in thought. "You ever feel like no matter how much you change, people still remember who you used to be?" he asked softly. Malik sat beside him. "Change isn't about what people remember," he said. "It's about what you choose to carry forward." Jake nodded slowly, his eyes wet. It was the first time he truly looked at them, not with shame or fear, but with gratitude. From that day on, Jake became part of their circle. Not as a project, but as a friend. He joined their morning practices, awkward at first but determined. The twins guided him gently, teaching him that martial arts wasn't about strength, it was about control, patience, and healing. Slowly, he began to understand that forgiveness, too, was a kind of discipline. Word of their bond spread through the school. What had started as curiosity turned into respect. Students began asking Malik and Maya to teach them basic moves, not for fighting, but for confidence. Soon, the gym that once echoed with laughter at their expense now filled with laughter of a different kind, one of learning, unity, and shared purpose. Emma filmed short clips of their sessions and posted them online under the title, Peace in Motion. Within days, the videos began to gather views. People commented about how the twins' calm energy inspired them, how Jake's transformation gave them hope. The story was spreading far beyond their small town. That evening, as the twins scrolled through the comments, Maya smiled. "Maybe this is what Dad meant," she said. Malik nodded. "Yeah, maybe real strength isn't taught in dojos, it's shared in moments like this." Outside, the world remained imperfect. But for the first time, it felt like light was fighting its way through the cracks. And somewhere between the glow of their phone screens and the quiet hum of the night, 3 teenagers, once divided by hate, were now united by heart. Weeks passed, and the small story of the twins and their school had begun to reach places they never imagined. Local newspapers wrote short pieces about them, calling them the peaceful black belts. What started as a story about 2 bullied students had become something much bigger, a reminder that grace can be stronger than anger. But fame wasn't what the twins sought. At home, they stayed humble, still helping their father in the small martial arts studio. It was an old building with worn mats and faded posters, but to them, it was sacred, the place where they learned patience, where discipline met heart. Every evening, they opened its doors to anyone who wanted to learn. Children, teenagers, even adults began to show up, curious about the twins who had turned hate into harmony. Among the newcomers was Jake. He came early every day, sweeping the floor before class started. He trained quietly, his once restless energy now replaced with calm focus. He no longer tried to prove himself, he just tried to be better. Watching him, Malik often smiled. "That's what strength looks like," he'd say. One evening, as class ended, a woman approached Maya. She was a mother of a boy who had been struggling at school. "He told me you taught him to stay calm when others made fun of him," she said, eyes glistening. "You've changed him." "Thank you." Maya's heart warmed. It wasn't praise she sought, but knowing that peace could spread, that was enough. The twins didn't realize how deeply they were shaping others. Their story became a lesson played out in real time, that people don't always need heroes who fight battles, sometimes, they just need examples of quiet courage. Still, in the midst of light, challenges remained. A few students from another school mocked their viral videos online, leaving comments filled with doubt and jealousy. For a moment, Malik felt the old anger stir, the urge to defend, to prove. But Maya placed her hand on his shoulder. "We don't answer hate with noise," she whispered. "We answer it by living better." So they didn't reply. Instead, the next day, they uploaded another video, this one titled, Peace Over Pride. In it, they spoke gently about staying kind even when misunderstood. The clip went viral again, but this time, it wasn't just a story. It was a message. That night, as the city lights shimmered outside their window, Malik whispered, "Maybe the world needed to see this." Maya nodded. "Maybe we did too." Their journey had started with fear and ended in purpose. But destiny, it seemed, wasn't finished with them yet. Something bigger was still waiting, just beyond the horizon. Months passed, and the twins' story had grown far beyond their small town. What began as pain had transformed into purpose. The world didn't see them as victims anymore, they were voices of calm, symbols of quiet strength. But to Maya and Malik, nothing had changed inside. They still woke early, tied their belts, and practiced under the same morning sun, their father's quiet presence always watching from the porch. One evening, they received an invitation from the city council. They were being honored for their positive impact on youth and community unity. At first, they hesitated. Fame had never been their goal. But their father said gently, "Accept it. Not for yourselves, but for every young person who's been told they don't belong." The auditorium that night was full. Students, parents, teachers, and even Jake sat in the front row, smiling proudly. The mayor spoke about their courage, their kindness, their refusal to let hate define them. Then, Maya was invited to speak. She stood at the podium, her voice calm but powerful. When we first came here, she began, we thought being strong meant fighting back. But real strength, it's quieter. It's in choosing peace when anger feels easier. It's in forgiving when you've been hurt. And it's in believing that even people who once judged you can learn to love you. The room fell silent, not out of formality, but out of feeling. Malik joined her, adding softly, we all wear different colors, live different stories. But we all bleed, breathe, and dream the same. Let's stop seeing what divides us, and start protecting what unites us. The audience stood in applause. Some cried. Even the bullies who once mocked them stood with heads bowed, clapping not out of pity but from respect. After the ceremony, as the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, the twins stood outside under the streetlights, the cool night air brushing their faces. You think we really made a difference? Malik asked quietly. Maya smiled. Maybe not to everyone. But even if one heart changed, that's enough. They looked up at the sky, endless, wide, and full of stars. Somewhere out there, a child would watch their story and find hope. Somewhere, someone would choose patience over pride, forgiveness over hate. Their father joined them, resting a hand on each shoulder. The world will always test your peace, he said. But if your heart stays calm, you've already won. As they walked home that night, the streetlights flickered behind them like gentle reminders of how far they'd come. Their journey had started with fear, and ended with faith. Because true power isn't in the fists we raise, it's in the hearts we open.